in any process of designed and refined and evolved system of governance, either in its implementation or its operation, transformation is a necessary component of it. And in all dynamics of transformation, whether we see transformation as change of economics or ecological transformation or financial or political process, in every dimension of human life process, there can be transformational resistance, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And that transformational resistance can generate a non-receptivity. And there can be, even if there's no resistance, there can be a non-receptivity to change, meaning human beings tend to resist change, even change that's beneficial for them, until and unless they feel safe with it, they resonate with it, they understand it, they recognize when, where, how, and why they can implement it in their lives, what the positive results will be, what the cost-benefit ratios are. So we just want to mention that as a portion of this conversation. The WSS, we're saying, is a legal functional organization. Simultaneously, we have teams of teams that are volunteer contributors, that are participants, and they operate independent of that legal functional organizational paradigm. So we have multiple layers, so to speak, to our organizational process and model, and each of them is in its own way governed differently. So that the dynamics of governance within the team of teams process, the contributing volunteer participants, is different than the operational organizational teams. And those operational organizational teams operate different than the core organizational personnel, employees, if you will, of the organization. And those systems of governance are going to be quite different than the systems, and we're saying systems of governance in the social movement engine, meaning if we're governing dynamics of social movements participating on a social media platform, and we want to ensure that they operate in wholesome, healthy ways and not terrorist ways or destructive ways or hateful ways, not to control them, just to optimally facilitate them and foster them into the most constructive, positive dynamics that we possibly can. That's one system of governance. If we have 30 not-for-profit organizations that are operating on the platform as individual organizations and operating interactively and collaboratively, then there's a whole nother paradigm of governance that they would operate under. If there are another 30 for-profit organizations that are operating both in for-profit mode, competitive mode potentially, and interactively on not-for-profit climate change initiatives with nonprofit organizations, that's a whole nother paradigm. And then when we bring in government institutions, universities, educational facilities of all kinds, and then we're talking about a whole new layer and level and very high degrees of sophisticated governance that are required in order to allow that evolutionary system and process to grow, evolve, allow for optimized participation, collaborative contribution, open discussion and dialogue and debate, and thus ensuring that every voice gets heard. And another system of governance is just the participation of individuals contributing their ideas, their statements of what they want the world to be, what they assume and believe and perceive to be a sustainable or positive or wonderful future life process for next generations. That's a different system of governance, so that the platform doesn't turn into a hate speech environment, and it does still have an open venue for airing real substantive issues, including a capacity for anonymous contribution of if somebody in some country was witnessing genocide or witnessing terrible abuses of the people in their area, we want to be able to give them that voice. And of course, this information would be vetted. This is not a situation where everything would be assumed to be accurate and true all the time. Misinformation in our world is endemic, And this system would be one, hopefully, of sussing out the truth at scale in any and all social, cultural, and national and international venues, and then operating from that arrived at truth in constructive, healthy, wholesome ways. So in the WSS, we have in our current model, we have many venues and dynamics of governance, and these are evolutionary dynamics of governance. Part of the governance system is these Friday meetings, meaning where we offer information, we offer reflection on the process, we offer ideas, we offer synthesis of the various team of teams outputs from their efforts, so that every team is cross-pollinating in its process. We do that so that each team can optimally evolve in whatever direction, in whatever way it feels is optimal and appropriate and healthy and beneficial and enjoyable and motivating and fulfilling. So in this process, it's a rather complex process, and it's nuanced and it's subtle and it's powerful and it's transdisciplinary, broad-based, and extensive. We're also very integrative. So in this process, in the WSS, because we have this, we're using the Roman baths metaphor here. In Rome, they used to have a series of baths. They would have a very cold, chill bath, and then a cool bath, and then a lukewarm bath, and then a warm bath, and then very hot baths or steam rooms. And in each of those venues, they might enjoy themselves. Some people want a hot bath, some people want a cold bath, some people want a steam room. Some people in the WSS process want to be participative in a very peripheral way. They may want to be part of the healing hub. They may want to be part of the mantra team, or they may just want to get a newsletter or some of the videos or the educational materials. Some people may want to participate on a team in a once a week way, and just contribute or volunteer their time and just be a participant, gain from the process, and not be focused on generating some constructive result. And that's totally good and wonderful and necessary and positive. Other teams want to be productive teams. They might not be organizational teams. They may be, they're volunteer teams, and they're generating substantive output that's very necessary to the organizational process. And each of these is governed in a different way. And the teams are in part self-governing, and in part they're governed by the requisite organizational dynamics in governance that we've evolved, such as our ethics, our team intentions, our dynamics of suggested dynamics of being non-judgmental, unconditionally loving, being open to listening to everyone, minimizing criticism, being forgiving on an ongoing basis, some very basic team tenets. Those are parts of the system of governance in this process. So we want to say that you folks have almost infinite free will on choosing where you take things and how you develop them and how you evolve them. And paradoxically, each of you would have one vote in that process. And you would have one contributing energy or part in the process. Or if you're part of 3, 4, 5 different teams, you would have influence in all of those teams. And paradoxically, not everything that occurs in the WSS can be constructively voted on by everybody all the time. We have made this as democratic a process as we possibly can within the constraints of legal and operational and organizational function, within the constraints of healthy, wholesome team collaborative participation. And we're always evolving that. We're listening to everything you say. If it takes us time to implement what you have asked for, or requested, or wish for, or intend, it's not that we haven't heard you. It's not that it's not going to be mixed in at some point. It's not that it hasn't already been mixed in. It might not have registered on everyone's radar that it has because of the subtleties of this process. And still, your contributions, your preferences, your ideas, your hopes and your wishes and intents are respected and are part of the process. A metaphor here is if we look at the whole WSS or any of these different team venues as a sort of recipe, making a cake. Any contributor at any moment might say, well, I think that this recipe needs a pound of butter in order to make the cake. And the person making the cake, if it's the team making the cake or if it's the organization making the cake, they might say, well, we understand that you feel that butter is necessary in this recipe. And as far as we understand, if it's really going to meet everybody's preferences optimally, just one stick of butter is necessary for the recipe instead of a pound of butter. Now, if you, having contributed your idea, says, no, the only way I'm going to be satisfied is if there's a pound of butter in that recipe. Well, we apologize. We are doing our best to put as much butter as we can in the recipe, or as much salt, or as much flour or eggs or whatever will make the best cake. And we're always listening to the reflections and the concepts and contributions that everybody reflects back to us and voices. So we just want to ensure that you do realize that if you offer a suggestion that, for example, would strategically change the entire process, and you don't recognize that it would strategically change the entire process, it doesn't mean we didn't hear you. It doesn't mean we're not implementing it to the degree we can. It means that we're implementing it to the degree we can, and that might not always be visible on your radar because your expectation, your projection of how it will look, if your ideas are implemented, doesn't seem to come to fruition. It doesn't mean we didn't hear you. It doesn't mean we don't love you. It doesn't mean we don't respect you. It means we're striving, as time goes by, to evermore implement your intentions. So we hope to honor and respect all of you all the time. We hope that it's always recognized that we are doing that. That's always our intention. And if we fail in that, if we don't meet your expectations or your desires or your standards or metrics, we apologize profusely, proactively, preemptively, and please always communicate to us so we can say, well, it might not have made sense. We really did implement what you said in this place, in this place, in this place within the organization. We sprinkled it through. We didn't put it all in one area, so to speak, of the organizational process. Just as it's necessary for a cake, if we want a good cake, we got to mix it up very, very well. You wouldn't want all the butter at one end of the cake and all the eggs and flour at the other end of the cake. It just wouldn't be a really great cake. Using recipe metaphors here, I hope it's constructive and useful in this moment. And the last item on this list is some strategic decisions can be voted on constructively, effectively, efficiently. And we do that. And we will continue to do that. Some strategic decisions cannot effectively be voted on unless and until we have what might be termed an optimally educated constituency, meaning we have conversations like this that communicate all these dynamics of governance to you folks so that we can then say, based upon what you've heard, based upon what you understand, based upon what you want, based upon what you prefer, based upon your vision of what will be the sustainable, beautiful future for humanity that will serve everyone and work optimally for as many people as possible. What do you prefer? What do you choose? What is your vote?